systems. Now, the key here is not that any of these numbers, I think, are right. I don't think we know. What we do know, though, I think with almost complete certainty, is that the standard story of a bazillion Hutu and a bazillion Tutsi and a few Hutu isn't true. Everybody dies in this story. There are no good guys. Now, here's the problem. Who's a Hutu and who's a Tutsi? This is the fundamental problem here. This is Juvenal, the late, great Juvenal Habyarimana. He's a good-looking guy. This is the president of Rwanda, Paul Kagame. Now, if we're thinking archetypes, if we're thinking, well, what does the sort of the ideal type Hutu and Tutsi look like? These two guys are them. He is Mr. Tutsi. This guy right here, he is the most beautiful Hutu if you're putting together a Hutu ad campaign. But the problem is, the degree of variation in Rwanda is extraordinary. In the 1920s and 30s, the Belgians put together a phrenology project. We found this in the archives of the National University. Christian and I spent a week there digging around just looking to see what was what. And it turns out the Belgians had tried to put together a crude multidimensional scale of Hutu-ness based on physical measurements. Weight, height, density, forehead, hair height, nose width, dozens of indicators. Now, it is true that there is a difference of means. They had hoped that the difference of means and the variance within the groups would be big difference of means, small variance. So you could say, I'm 98% sure that you're a Hutu based on your physical measurements. The problem is, it turned out like this. The Belgians drop the phrenology model. Why? Because it didn't work. They tried for 15 years to come up with a way to identify these people through physical, measurable attributes. And they failed miserably. It was not for want of trying, though. Now, who's responsible? Well, that's an interesting question. What we've got going here is, this is going to be an animation of the movement of the RPF coming from Uganda in 1994. We've got a little calendar down here. This is April, May, and June. And what we did was, we started off with, first, the Defense Intelligence Agency estimates, as published by Alan Cooperman in his book. Then we updated those with the CIA's National Intelligence Estimates. We then took those and we made maps, daily maps. And then we took those and we gave them to Peter Erlander, who took them to both members of the RPF planning group from 1994. And then he took them to the senior officers in the FAR who were all in jail. And he said, my colleagues have come up with these maps of where you guys were on these dates. And so we got corrections from the actual two militaries themselves, and we went back and forth iteratively. And now we have a consensus about this is where the front line was day by day during this whole period. Now, one of the things you're going to notice is the RPF moves in fits and starts. This is not a continuous movement, okay? Now, they come down from the north. This is very much a sweep. Here, over the course of 2 days, they cut off, this is a major road out of Kigali. They cut off the road to make sure that heavy equipment can't come out. They leave open a salient, though, so that the Hutu can flee on foot. They then move down, and this is a large north-south road, and they take an overwatch position over the road. And then they sit and wait, and wait, and wait. Now, one of the things that we're going to see is, they walk. Okay, Bill, you got to remember, this country, this is about 60 miles across. From Kigali overland to here is a 2-day walk. Okay? Think Vermont. Think hoofing it over Vermont with footpaths like Ireland and England. There are footpaths everywhere. Okay? So, by blocking the roads, they prevent the movement of trucks and equipment, but it doesn't slow down or bar the movement of individual people. Okay, they can walk out. Now, the movement over here on the left, that was the French army, Operation Turquoise, coming in to save the folks. Now, what we're going to see next is we're going to overlay the killing data with the troop movements. We have up here, this is April 5th, April 6th. Purple is really, really bad. Pink is bad. The starting dates and the locations come from eyewitness testimony. This all comes from the ICTR testimony. The scale of the killing in each of these locations comes from the aggregate data from both the Mass Graves Identification Project and the household census conducted by the Rwandan government. Now, during this pause, there are negotiations going on in Kigali. Romeo Dallaire says at this point to Paul Kagame, look, obviously the FAR is not going to stop the Interahamwe. You need to do it then. Kagame's response, according to Romeo Dallaire, is no. I'm not going to put any of my men's lives at risk. And so, the process that the RPF follows is essentially the consolidation. They move forward and then they consolidate. They know what's going on. It's not far. Everybody knows in this country what's going down. But the RPF doesn't do anything to stop it. Now, one of the things that's of great interest is, once the RPF moves down and occupies the land along this road between Gitarama and Butare, they sit there. And you'll see there's a lot of killing that's going on not far away. This is a scale. This is 0 to 60 kilometers. The difference from Gitarama to Kabuye is about 25 miles. Less than the distance from Ann Arbor to Detroit. It's not far. These guys sit there. Now, through Peter Erlander, we interviewed some of the small unit commanders, lieutenants and captains in the RPF. And we said, why didn't you, just out of curiosity, I mean, it's your country, but why didn't you guys do anything? Why did you just sit there? And their response was, well, actually, we did. But all of the small unit leaders that took the initiative to cross over the line were relieved of command directly by Kagame. Kagame, by this point, has been told that the United States will intervene. Kagame then replies through intermediaries to Bill Clinton and says, if U.S. troops arrive, I cannot guarantee that my troops will not fire on them. That was the point at which Bill Clinton said, screw it. We're not doing anything. The French come in. Now all of a sudden the French arrive, and the RPF suddenly manages to be able to move rather quickly. Over the course of 4 or 5 days, they're able to move across an area that they had sat and watched for close to a month. And that's the end of the war. Except that, then over the course of the next 2 years, another 150,000 people die in this area in the Congo when the RPF invades over here.